What is up, y'all? Gideon here. We're checking in. Just got the new information about the new Annihilation Raid. So we want to go ahead and break some of that down. You still might can use Orcus. You still might can use Orcus. They're going to hold on for at least a little bit longer. We'll make sure we talk about that. We're going to talk about how it will affect different styles of player, right? If you are an elder game player, an end game player, you got all the stuff, you're going to be looking at things one way. If you don't, if you're somewhere catching up, new player mid game, if you're somewhere catching up, you're going to have to look at things a little bit differently because it's not going to work out the same for you. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but there are some changes and adjustments to this raid that we want to make sure we are down with, make sure we understand it in advance. We'll go ahead and break that down. So let's flip right over to the blog. I'm sure you've seen it with all the other big guys already talking, but we're going to go ahead and give you a nice, well-rounded spin on this thing. We're talking about the Annihilation Raids. The Annihilation Raids. A new battlefield is here, the Annihilation Raids. Designed for alliances of all sizes and power levels, these raids offer powerful rewards tailored to your goals. This is your chance to earn substantial amounts of Crimson gear. Review the details below and start strategizing with your alliance today. So what strategy do we need to keep in mind? Well, we need to keep in mind that first subheading there, 2 raids forge your path. So there'll be 2 different ways you can play this raid, just like in the Chaotic Storm, but we're going to see there are some changes. There are some adjustments. There's some things we want to look at to make sure that our alliance is able to do the best that it can. The Annihilation Raid replaces the Chaotic Storm raids, introducing new opportunities for alliances who can choose their path based on ambition. Annihilation Raid, ideal for alliances seeking a balanced experience, accessible gameplay, and rewarding challenges. Annihilation Omega, built exclusively for top alliances seeking strategic collaboration and exceptional completion rewards. Each raid will possess 8 lanes for each of the 3 strike teams, consisting of 8 mission nodes. Completion rewards will unlock at 90% completion. Completion rewards will unlock at 90% completion. However, you will still need 100% completion to fully complete and end the raid automatically. Let's break that down a little bit. 2 raids, kind of like how it is with the Chaotic Storm raid. You got your basic and you got your Omega. Omega is going to be for the end game alliances. Okay. Omega is going to be for the end game alliances, just like it is today. You're going to set a bar and everybody needs to be able to meet that. They can exceed it if possible, but we have to remember that with the Omega version, you're setting a bar and everyone needs to be able to meet that. They can exceed it, but they have to be able to at least meet the bar that you set regarding the difficulty level. The standard Annihilation Raid should work similar to how we have the standard Chaotic Storm, in that it's going to be adjustable. Okay. It says you will need to unlock at 90% completion. Okay. To get the completion rewards. So that means you don't have to do all the nodes, right? There's people can miss a little bit here and there. I don't know how much. 90% is an awful lot. We'll have to see. But if you KO at 100%, many of us have seen that, then the raid will just end automatically and you're waiting for the next one to spawn. So the thing with that is, if you're too slow getting into your raids, you got super ambitious people, you might miss out on the raid. And I think that was one of the issues with the Chaotic Storm. You could be a little bit slow and the other super aggressive players could come in and knock the thing out. You wouldn't have anything else left to do. So it looks like they're bumping the completion up again to this 90%. You'll still get the rewards, but you won't get the KO until you hit that 100. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I don't foresee any difficulty there. They're just letting you know that's how you're going to get your rewards. I apologize. I'm swallowing a lot here. I got something going on, man. Something going on. All right, difficulty levels. Rise to the challenge. Both raids feature 9 escalating difficulty levels, each providing higher stakes and greater rewards. Starting in difficulty 2, characters must meet ISO 8 requirements. Okay. That's a small deal. It's a small deal. It's probably not something we'll be thinking about for the end game player. The end game player is going to have their purple ISO all the way around. But again, if you're somewhere in the mid game, if you're somewhere in the newer portion, you just need to be mindful that that is part of the requirements. We forget those sometimes. I know we did. Again, with the new player alliance, we would raise the difficulty, right? We'd have all the 100% participation. We'd raise the difficulty and only like 5 people would participate. We're like, what's going on? What happened? Everybody did not have the ISO requirements. So again, end game, you're not going to have a problem, but people that are coming along, just you need to communicate to make sure you don't freeze people out. So that's why, again, if you have a mixed alliance of experienced and non-experienced players, it might be better to just go with the basic difficulty. Default difficulty 1, there's no ISO requirements. You go up from 2, 3, and 4. You have green ISO there. You got blue ISO at difficulty 5 and 6. Difficulty 7, 8, and 9. You have purple ISO. And I just think it's interesting. So either this is a typo, right? So either this is a typo, level 3, right? Or I guess we'll find out when we see it. Or maybe they're making room here to increase the difficulty level later. I don't know. I haven't seen it. I have no idea. I just think it's weird that it says purple 3 twice. So either it's a typo and it's supposed to be 1, 2, 3, or maybe that highest difficulty is going to increase later on in the year. Well, I guess this would be next year. Each mission allows individual difficulty selection with the individual raid difficulty selector, empowering each member of the alliance to contribute effectively. Okay, so again, we want to keep in mind, if you're doing the Omega difficulty, I'm fairly confident that's just a base difficulty and everybody has to go up. We need to keep that in mind because the requirements here are going to change. If it's the regular, then people can, it starts out at 0 and you can go as high or low as you want. Okay. So just things to keep in mind because we have here these dynamic trait requirements. So starting at difficulty 3, missions feature trait requirements. From difficulties 3 through 6, it's origin traits for greater accessibility. So let's just break it down. Difficulty 1 and 2 is probably just raids, just anything. It's probably doesn't even say raids, right? It's just use or whatever. So that's where your newest players are going to start. You just have 1 or 2 teams and you're just going to try to brute force it with whatever teams you have. Then as you get up here to difficulty 3, you need to at least have the trait. So you have to have a mutant team. You have to have a tech team. Okay. They don't have to be the best, the baddest, the newest. They just need to be 5 characters that fall into that category. As you continue to move up, difficulty 7 up to 9, which is max difficulty, specific team requirements. So for example, level 6, you could still use, well, I guess it'll give an experience down at the bottom. But you have to have, starting at difficulty 7, you have to have the named team. So for the Mystic Lanes, that's still going to be Night Stalkers, right? So you have to have Night Stalkers once you get up to difficulty 7. Before that, it could just be a mix of Mystic characters. Once you hit 7, it's going to have to be the named team. Interestingly enough, at 6 and 7, at these 2 difficulties only, nodes that require the most recently added team will also allow the second most recent team of a specified origin trait. And the example they give here is Hellfire Club or the Extreme X-Men. So again, this is where the end game alliances are going to start to transition. Okay. This is where the end game alliances are going to start to transition. When the raid comes out, we should have access if you're a spender, if you're a spending alliance, right? It can't just be an individual because to get through, you're gonna need everybody. So if it's a spending alliance, you can start flexing up into the Hellfire Club. Even if I guess we're not, if we're just super aggressive, we can still use our Extreme X-Men. We'll have to see what type of investment it is. We'll have to see what type of power level. It's not going to be made for them. It should be harder for them. Should be harder for them, the Extreme X-Men. But it's allowing you to kind of flex and start pushing into that new area as soon as the team is up and running. People who spend will have the advantage because they'll have the team first. And then as you get up again into difficulties 8 and 9, you have to have the newest team, the latest raid team of each origin trait per node. Dynamic lanes, evolving challenges. As new raid teams debut, they'll replace older teams in the 2 highest difficulties. That's going to keep the challenges fresh, dynamic, and aligned with the newest team strategies. Newer teams will be featured in 2 nodes in a lane. Complete teams will be necessary to finish a raid lane for the highest difficulties. Now, we're having, at least I am, having some difficulty following this. I'm having some difficulty understanding how this is going to work. Okay. So again, the example they gave is Extreme X-Men and then Hellfire Club. So Hellfire Club will be up and running if you're a spender when the new raid launches. So I'm assuming at the highest difficulty, it'll just say Hellfire Club and you won't be able to use Extreme. But we won't yet have the new tech team, right? The Insidious 6. And we're not sure how all that's going to work. Is it just going to have a Sinister 6 tag? You can use all those individuals because there's only 3 Insidious 6 members. So maybe this, I'm just speculating, it'll have Sinister 6 as the tag. You're definitely going to want to have those Insidious members because they'll be primed for raids. We're guessing. But the point is the team won't be out yet. So that should mean you would still be able to use Orcus. But for how long? Can you use Orcus until the new team starts? Right? When the first Insidious member hits, does Orcus go away? Or, right, will it be when the whole team is revealed? Right, we're just not sure about that. That's just one of those things to keep an eye on. Again, that it's not going to be designed for Orcus. Orcus are going to be brute forcing its way through. So this is one of those things where it's going to be tough anyway, right? The newest team should make it easier. It's going to be tough anyway if you're using something else. If you're using an older team, it should be because you're supposed to be pivoting to the new team, but we'll have to see how that works out. Also, I'm not sure, right? It says new teams will be featured in 2 nodes. So I'm struggling, right? I guess we'll just have to wait and see. We'll just have to wait and see what the map looks like. I was trying to get clarification. So does that mean that let's look here. Right? So this is what I'm saying. 8 mission nodes, right? So 2 times there's 5 teams, so 2 times 5 is 10. There's going to be 8. But the newer teams are going to have 2 nodes. So that's 2 and 2 is 4. So will the other disciplines only have 1 node each? Right? That's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just different, right? It's just different than what we're used to. Help me understand if I'm misunderstanding. And again, we haven't seen it yet. So that's where the speculation is coming from. We haven't seen it, so we don't know. We haven't seen it yet, so we don't know. But help me to understand if I'm not grasping what they're saying. It looks like there's only 8 lanes, but the new teams are going to have 2 nodes each. Or there's only 8 nodes, not 8 lanes. There's 8 nodes, but the new teams will have 2 nodes each. So that would make 4, meaning there's only 4 more right? Am I missing something? I guess we'll see it when we see it, man. We'll see it when we see it. Recommended strategy to maximize your rewards. Okay. Because difficulty 8 and 9 will require only the newest teams, we recommend instead that alliances choose difficulty 6 or 7 and utilize the Annihilation Raid map instead of the Omega map, as well as the individual raid difficulty selector. This will help avoid missions that require teams that may not have fully unlocked yet and help maximize rewards as the highest difficulties cannot be completed without the full newest teams. So the suggestion there is obviously to go after the new map, the Annihilation Raid, but to start at that difficulty 6, difficulty 7, so that that raid selector can be used. That way, even if you don't have the newest teams, you can still make progress. You can still work in the raid. So again, if you're a spender alliance, or you're just a spender in an alliance, you will have the Hellfire Club team when the raid launches, if you're a spender. So that person could, if we started on difficulty 6 or 7, bump up in difficulty to get through the Hellfire nodes if that's what they wanted to do. Otherwise, right, they could just chill. If an alliance is a spendy alliance and they're all going to have the team, they could select, let me think here. They might still select difficulty 6 of the Omega version. I don't know. Maybe. We'll have to see how difficult the tech section is. If a big dog, right, big dog alliances, they might have strong enough characters to brute force. We'll have to see. Maybe they could select difficulty 6 on the Omega version and try to punch their way through with Orcus. And if they're having success, maybe they could even personally dial it up to 7 to see if they can get some more points. Okay, we're going to look at the game. We don't have the map, but we're just going to look at in game to show you how this may look in real life. Rewards, it says grab plenty of gear from blue to crimson, especially our gear tier 20. So hopefully there's a boost in the amount of rewards that right there needs to be incentive to move to the newer raid. So hope there's a boost in our gear tier 20. It probably won't be sizable, but it should be at least a step up to give people a reason to do the newer raid. And should be, it says based on your completion and difficulty, obviously gold, tier 4s, things like that. Don't miss the start of the Annihilation Raids when the door opens on August 22nd at 2 p.m. Okay, so that's next Friday. Not this coming up Friday, but next Friday. New raid should start at reset. Okay, that was a lot of stuff. How are we going to apply this information? We're going to go ahead and I'm going to switch over to not that. Switch over to the game. We are going to look at a couple different scenarios. We're going to look at a couple different scenarios. Where am I? Where are we? Here we go. Bang. All right. We're going to look at a couple different scenarios into what might work, what might not work regarding that. Bug, what's up, man? Bug Media back in the house. What's going on, brother? Bug Media. So, where's my phone? It's down here. All right. So, let's say this is going to be a mixed alliance, right? This is a mixed alliance. We got people of various development. What would happen? So if we just look at where my alliance is right now in the Chaotic Storm raid, one of the questions is, what happens with the difficulty selector, right? Why would I do this? What happens with the difficulty selector? So with this type of raid, with the normal version, so with the normal Annihilation Raid, I'm thinking it still is going to work like this. What you have is some raid season points. And we see it's at the low amount there of 60. So what we got, and we have some of the currency. In this case, it's the antimatter. All right. Here's our buddies. And am I doing something wrong? I don't see any other rewards, right? There's no other rewards. This is that normal difficulty. I would have to scale it up, I think, to get some other rewards. So most of the time, I can do difficulty 3. That's the max. So things that did not change are the raid season points. So we'll assume that that also will not change. So that'll be locked in if you're doing the standard version. The amount of currency for the chapter store also did not change. That will be locked in. So why would I increase the difficulty? Why wouldn't I just do everything on the base difficulty? Because you see here the rewards change. And I apologize. We do get more raid season points. As you add difficulty, we do get more raid season points. So there's a base amount of 30, or excuse me, 60. And then as I go up, that number changes. All right. So if I'm in difficulty 3, I get an additional 300 points. So that is a reason why, if you care about chasing the raid leaderboard. In addition, yeah, the chapter currency also does increase. I should be paying more attention. The chapter currency also does increase. So on base difficulty, there isn't any. Difficulty 1, I get 50 per node, or 50 per node, and difficulty 3, I get 75 per node. So again, it's the reason to push, to just give you a little bit more of that currency. Again, you're doing this every day. It's not a world-breaking amount, but it is something that will increase over time. The other thing is the other rewards in form of those orbs. Okay. So again, the incentive is to increase the difficulty if you can, to get your account appropriate rewards for your account. So again, in this case, if I'm doing difficulty 1, there's teal and there's orange, no crimson. You start getting a little bit of crimson. No crimson there. Difficulty 2, it's teal and orange. And then we start getting into the crimson at difficulty 3. That's why it's important, if you're trying to build a new account, to get a team up to difficulty 3. That way you're able to start getting those crimson rewards. What you get from here, 19s, some 20s. And so it's just a little bit. I don't know if you can see that there. I'll get 20 orb fragments. So that's not a ton. 20 orb fragments is not a ton. And I'll get 1 Crimson Gear Raid orb pretty much from doing that. But if I can get up to the maximum difficulty in this case, then I'll get 130. Yeah, 130 of the armory 20 orbs. And I'll get 2.5 orbs for the Crimson Gear Raid orbs. All right. So there is an incentive to move up. We'll have to see what that looks like in the Annihilation portion. Since there's 9 difficulties instead of 5, that will be something to look at. That'll be something to compare. Make sure we take note of that. We want to make sure that it's a step up, right? Even if it's not a insane amount more, we want to make sure that it's a step up. So if you're in a mixed alliance, this is probably your best bet, is to just pick the standard version. Yeah. Just pick the standard version. If you're in a mixed alliance. So it said that, what about being in an end game alliance? Okay. So I'm going to switch devices here so we can look at the option for the end game players. I got a different device. All right, I got 2 devices so I can have my 2 accounts on the go and play with them as I can. So you're going to have a different set of, not problems. Problems isn't the right word, but your priorities are going to be different as a end game style player. Okay. Your priorities are going to be different as an end game style player. So I just got to wait for that to load up. And then we'll take a look at the raid there and see what the differences may consist of. Okay, so this is my end game account. And looks like we're winning in the Alliance War right there. We're doing pretty good. But in those raids, we're doing the Chaotic Storm Omega. So in the Annihilation Omega, right? Why would I pick this one? What has to do with the, what are these? The completion rewards. It has to do with the completion rewards in this case. Okay? Because on the individual nodes, if we go back, they're all done here. So does anybody have a node or two left I could look at? There we go. I was gonna say they're not done. All right. So on the Omega version, the rewards that you get on the individual nodes are going to be chapter currency and are going to be some raid season points. But your orbs and all that stuff, okay, your Crimson Gear orbs and stuff like that are not on the nodes. They're wrapped into the overall completion rewards. So that would mean your alliance as a whole, right, just kind of like it is now, needs to be able to complete X amount of the map. Okay, so again, this is one of those things where we just got to keep an eye on. You want the Omega rewards always to be greater than the base difficulty rewards, because this is for people that are coordinating. They want to work together. It'd be a little bit more hardcore, as the other one can be more casual. So you want to make sure that the people that are doing more, that are in more of a hardcore stance, are rewarded appropriately. So what we're going to be looking for is just like this. So tier 3, where do I get there? So about 1.6 of the army 220 fragments. And then if we get 100%, it's almost 2.5, right? So there is an increase. So that's what we want to look for when the new raid comes out. How big is this increase? Depending on, my percentage, where can I set my baseline? And then we'll dial it up from there. You just got to remember that on the Omega version, there's no reason to dial it up except for just for pride for the most part, because the rewards are here. They're tied into the completion. So it's what the alliance as a whole can do. So if the alliance as a whole can do more, then you want to lean into that. If not, if people are in various areas and you just want to use the basic version, that's at least how I understand it at the moment. If there's any questions, you can throw them in there. Again, I haven't seen the information yet, so I do not know what it looks like. Okay, we took some notes. Oh, yeah, forgot. I took some notes. There was couple things that I wanted to address. For example, we need to keep in mind that they said the raids will be for the named team. Okay, the raids will be for the named team. So, for example, the name of this team are the Night Stalkers. So it will not be at the highest difficulties. It will not be a mystic team. You understand what I'm saying? It will be the named team. So that would be the Night Stalkers, meaning you cannot add or substitute other characters. So although Odin is a mystic character, correct? Odin is a mystic character, and a lot of people are using him to stand in with that team. That will not be possible anymore at those highest difficulties, because it will have to be the named team, right? Odin is not on a raid team. He is not part of the Night Stalkers. So at those levels, you cannot use Odin, if I'm understanding correctly. So that would mean for a person like myself, right? What's the team? Well, currently, it's the Hellfire Club. So that would mean on the end game variety, I'm going to have to use that team. And again, I'm struggling a little bit. I don't know how I feel about Mr. Azazel and whatnot. I have made exceptions in the past to build a character for the raids because it's for the whole alliance, right? It's not just hurting me, it's hurting the entire alliance. And before I could switch a person out, but that will no longer be the case, right? You need the full team. The node will have the name Hellfire Club. So you have to use those characters. The other thing we were wondering about is the Insidious 6. So again, there's only going to be 3 of those members that would take up this spot here on the bottom right. So then the question is, what else are we going to do? 3 people is not a raid team. So either they make it so it's just for those 3. That would be interesting. But it says they're still pumping up Shocker and Vulture. So in my mind, this is just speculation. In my mind, it's going to be, it'll say the Sinister 6. And you're going to have those 3 core Insidious members because they're the ones who are going to be doing the raid type stuff. And without any raid type bonuses, it might not work very well. That's a guess, 100% guess on my part. 100% guess on my part. Now, let me see. I wrote down some other notes real quick. Again, if you got any questions, drop them in. I haven't seen the information I haven't seen the raid personally, so I don't know exactly how it's going to look yet. So just some things we wanted to talk about. We talked about the practical path for our mid-tier alliances that you definitely want to pick the base version and dial up to get the rewards that are necessary that are the best rewards you can get for your account. The second most recent team. Okay, so again, in the blog post, it said that difficulty 6 and 7, you can use either the newest team or the second most recent team on that specific origin. So we just want to pay attention to that. We have 2 ways that can come in handy. One, if you are caught up, the transition from Hellfire Club to the Extreme X-Men to the Hellfire Club, you still have both of those as an option until the difficulty goes up higher. And then if you are catching up, again, same thing. If you're catching up and you're somewhere else and you have enough power in your old, you might have to double tap it, right? This is when you're catching up. You're not at full power yet. You might need both teams to punch through those nodes. And if you have enough people that fall into that category, you might consider running the raid at that difficulty for the most appropriate rewards. Lane rotation. In the past, we would send people up one lane for at time to time and kind of brute force our way through, right? I don't know what it's going to look like if that'll be the case. If we're able to still, like it is now, hop over, everybody maybe can punch through a section and then spread back out. We'll have to see. So we got Bug Meteor. He says, so as a 91 level player, I should build up the Night Stalkers and Sinister 6 teams. Do not build the Sinister 6 because I'm speculating. I don't know how that's going to look. Do not build the Sinister 6 because I'm speculating. I don't know how that's actually going to look in real life. There's only 3 Insidious 6 members, and 3 people are not a raid team usually. So we're just wondering how that's going to look. We're just speculating. Don't build anything. It's a ways out before we start seeing the team. As far as Night Stalkers, it looks like they're still going to be needed. It looks like they're not getting replaced. So the 5 teams would be Vigilante, would be the most important. Let's take a look real quick here. Vigilante. All right, so let me go back. Raid teams. So we go to our rosters, we look at the raid teams. Thunderbolts is the newest. So they're still going to be good. Vigilante is great. Vigilante's always been a really good, not always, but yeah, they were surprising. They've been a good team. So they're safe to build. The infographic, not infographic, but the information at the front in the Age of Annihilation section says Uncanny Avengers, I believe. I'm not sure how they come into play. So I'm just going to leave them where they are. I don't know what to say about that. I don't know that there's a node for them in this new raid. I'm not sure. I haven't seen it, but the information on the front, that splash screen in the Age of Annihilus mentions the Uncanny Avengers. I'm not sure what that means. Night Stalkers is still safe to build. It looks like they're going to be needed for the team. Orcus is getting replaced. So Orcus is out. The Insidious 6 is coming in. So that means I would stop building Orcus. So if I had an opportunity to put more power in his team, I would stop doing that. Me personally, because I'm on the end game at this account and I need these characters, right? I'm working on Scientist Supreme for Gear Tier 20 for Professor X. I'm still going to finish this. But otherwise, since they announced it, I would stop putting investment in the team. Yeah, and that brings us, that's it. Oh no, Extreme X-Men. They're way down here at the bottom. Extreme X-Men is the other team. So again, they're being replaced right now by the Hellfire Club. So again, that's another team I would not invest in. So I don't know. Hopefully I answered the question. Do not put any power into the Sinister Six just because we don't know how it's going to look. We don't know how it's going to go for the teams. Night Stalkers is still safe to build because they weren't mentioned as the individuals getting eliminated. Awesome. Bug says that's great. Appreciate you, brother. Appreciate you. So keep them coming. If you got more, keep them coming. Let's see what other notes did we have. ISO 8 breakpoints and efficiency. So just remembering that as we increase the difficulty, ISO 8 requirements increase as well. For the end game players, that's not an issue. We get more than enough stuff. You're just going to keep going. No problem there. But if you are new, if you're catching up, if you haven't revisited some of your older teams, sometimes we get stuck when the difficulty goes up that we didn't have the ISO 8 for that particular character. And again, I think I'm in a good spot now with my newer account. That is, if it's blue ISO for sure, I can do it. Blue, I can bring anybody up to blue ISO. Purple, so far, seems like it's been okay. I haven't run out. So this account is about 8 months old, the new player account. If that gives you any indication. But we did have it in the past where we would increase the difficulty for something. We would have 100% participation. We increase the difficulty. Now all of a sudden, like 5 people are participating and everybody else is locked out because they didn't have enough ISO. So just keep in mind, communicate before we increase the difficulty. 90% versus 100% completion. So just remember, at 90% completion, you get your rewards, but to just automatically end the raid, so it just turns off and says you won, you're going to need, once again, 100% completion for that. But if you can push to that 90, everybody can get the rewards, the 100% rewards. The newest team trap. All right. I usually don't say things like that. I usually don't talk about trap teams or things of that nature. But the blog was helping us to appreciate that those top levels, I think it was difficulty 8 and 9, right? Is that what it was? Difficulty 8 and 9. Let me find my blog. I think it was difficulty 8 and 9, it said. That you needed those newest teams. Right? Difficulty 8 and 9 will require only the newest teams. So there can be a little bit of a trap there, right? Again, that's not usually wording that I like to use. Gotta find a sweet spot here on the viewpoint. So you're gonna need the newest teams to go up to those top levels. Okay. So you just have to make sure you're playing. That's when you're gonna have to play, be honest, and we're playing the game with people who play like us. So if I'm in a spender alliance and everybody goes up except me, it's gonna be a problem because they're gonna want me to have it, and I'm not spending money, right? I'm not spending money, so I'm not gonna have it. So I need to be with people that are either more fluid and dynamic, or just as if we're hardcore free to play, you're hanging out with other people that are hardcore free to play. They're gonna get those characters about the same time, and then the difficulty level can go up from there. Crimson Gear and Gear Tier 20 farming route. So I think we talked about that already. We're going to have to look at the rewards, right? People usually do a good job doing that. We're going to physically have to look at the rewards when the raid comes out. Look at what people had. Look at what you get from doing the various difficulties, and then look what people get from doing the Omega difficulty, if it's sustainable, and see what the difference is there. Because obviously you want to maximize where you can get the most from, especially when it comes to Gear Tier 20, because right, that's how you get the strongest characters. I'm still looking for Professor X, so that's my concern of mine. Other people are just in the mode route. They already got them. They're just they want to get so they can just Gear Tier 20 all their strongest characters. They're going back and pulling up all their mythics and legendaries that they're using and other effective characters. So we just want to make sure we're getting the most bang for our buck. Player roles with individual difficulty raid selector. What did I mean by that? Oh, all right. So assigning lanes and things like that. So assigning lanes isn't something we really have to do anymore with the raid difficulty selector. Everybody could just assign themselves. I think it should look similar to how the raids look right now. Just 8 lanes, so it's just a straight shot from top to bottom. And then we just want to be mindful that we with the difficulty selector on the basic, you can just bring it down to 0 if you need to and push through an area you don't have. On the more difficult versions, still have to see it and have some discussion where it might be necessary for more than one person to double up to punch through a lane to get the maximum rewards. So those are the items that I think we wanted to share. So it's good. It's good that they're communicating. They're letting us know. We're going to have to see it. So understand how it's going to work. Feel free to ask questions. Make sure you go over to the main Marvel Strike Force Discord. Ask questions. See what they'll answer. The communication has definitely been a lot better than it hasn't been in times past. So feel free to just ask those questions. You can ask me questions. I could throw them in on the Envoy side. Go over to the main Marvel Strike Force Discord. Ask questions. That's the only way you get answers, right? I'm sure there's people freaking out right now. I'm sure there's people that are going nuts. I'm sure there's people that are saying it's the end of the world because that's what people do. But the best thing to do is just ask questions. If we can get the answers to the questions, right, then that stops the weirdness and the nonsense. Hopefully you're having a good day. Take care of yourself and your family, and we'll catch you on the next one. Peace out.